As you may know, ChatGPT now allows you to make specialized bots which will be for a specific purpose. And I would like to introduce to you one of such bots which we've been working on, which is called UNINFO Analyzer. Basically, it's a bot that is trained to be able to help you analyze your UNINFO data. So my presentation today will take you through it and how to use it, always with a reminder that you always need to cross-check the information, ensure that there's human intervention, and not always take the information as is, as ChatGPT and other generative AI tools get things wrong. Let's dig in. To start using UNINFO Analyzer, you upload the Excel file, which is the Excel file of your UNINFO data. And then you ask it to say, please analyze this. So what I entered was the UNINFO for Gambia, and then once I've entered the information, the file, it will start off by giving me a summary of what the file is all about. Then it will list the column names and description. We need to do this just to ensure that we're looking at the right file with the right information and the columns which we are expecting. So the next thing it will ask you is whether you should do a standard analysis or whether you've got your own approach. So basically what that means is that if you've got your own approach and want to dig in and just ask your own questions, you can do that. But there's also a standard analysis which I'll take you through, which looks at certain information. So let's start with looking at that. So it's asked me, should I do a standard analysis or you've got your own approach? So I'm going to answer standard analysis. It will start off when you select the standard analysis. So it will start off by telling you how many unique outcomes are in your data set, and then it will list the names of the outcome. After listing the names of the outcomes, it will ask you to specify which outcome you wish to analyze further. And this is because it's hard to analyze all the outcomes at once. Always easiest to analyze each outcome or one outcome at a time. Suppose the outcome I want to analyze further is outcome 1.2. So it will start off by doing a specific outcome analysis, which is it will do the following. It will tell you the status of the distribution, how many activities and finalization or implementation. It will also look at the financial analysis. So the financial analysis shows that for outcome 1.2, the total required resources are 12 million. The available is 13 million. So it shows you for the financial resource analysis that the total required resource for the outcome is 12.9 million. The available resources 13.4 million. And the expenditure is at 4 million. It also shows that there's a resource gap indicating a surplus. That means they've got more than what is required at least. What it also does is it calculates the expenditure efficiency rate, which is the percentage of available resources that have been spent. So in this case, it is at 31%, indicating that 31% of the available resources have been expended on this outcome. It will then conclude with giving a little summary of what it thinks. After that, it will ask you, this is part of the standard analysis. So it's asked you which output you want to analyze, and it's given you the information, the broad information about the outcome. Now it starts looking at the outputs in that outcome, and it asks you to say, shall we proceed with outcome specific analysis for each output under the outcome? So I will say yes. So it's explaining what it will do. It won't always start off by explaining in depth like this. See, what it's saying it will do is it will list the output name and do a financial analysis which looks at the resources that are available, the gap in resources, the expenditure efficiency rate, and the top 5 sub-outputs. So for output 1.2.2, as you can see here, it shows the information, and this is all the information. So you can go on and do a detailed analysis of the sub-outputs, but because of time we don't have. So because we don't have time, we're not going to do it. However, it asked for the next steps in the standard analysis to say, would you like detailed sub-output analysis for all outputs, or shall we proceed to the next step, analyzing the implications of the result? I think we should proceed with a detailed output analysis. You can see it shows you the sub-outputs that have the most resources available, the outputs with the expenditure, and also the outputs with the resource gap. Sometimes it will attach the figures, sometimes as it's done now, it does not attach the figures. Once it's done that, it will do a little analysis of the implications of the meaning. In this case, it says that there's a focus on supporting law enforcement and justice institutions, and it unpacks that a bit more. So as I said, it will keep doing this analysis until it has analyzed all the outputs in the outcomes. Right. So let's recap. It started off by giving us the number and names of outcomes in our file, then asked us which outcomes we want to analyze. We choose the outcome, and it tells us aggregate information about the outcome, the financial information about the outcome, and also the activities. After that, it asks us to select, to do an output analysis. It looks at the outputs and also gives us the information per output. Now the next stage will then be to do an SDG analysis for each outcome. So I will then ask it to proceed to do that. So it will tell you what it's going to do. Well, not always, but on a good day, it will tell you what it's going to do. So it's going to look at the top 5 goals based on the total available resources required. It's basically looking at the breakdown of financial expenditures in the SDGs. Looking at the top 5 with the available resources, top 5 that require, and also the expenditure. It also looks at the expenditure efficiency. You can see it's now given us SDG analysis in terms of how we're doing in the SDGs. Shows, for example, SDG 16 is, I think, the one with the biggest expenditure. Yes. But you will also notice that for SDG 5, for the information is the same. And this is more to do with how the information is entered in UNINFO and not about ChatGPT getting it wrong. So in this instance, in this specific instance, it's about how we enter the data in the UNINFO. So it's best to try and look at how we can then be able to better disaggregate the expenditure per SDG. But this is what the analysis will give you. It will look at do a little analysis of the implications. I mentioned earlier that besides doing the standard analysis with UNINFO Analyzer, you can actually ask it to analyze something specifically. So let's just see how you do that. So it's the same process. You upload your file on with UNINFO data, and then you just ask it to analyze this file. It's good to start off by asking it to analyze the file because it means that it will also delete the columns which are empty, which will make the analysis easy. When it asks you whether you want to do a standard analysis or a specific approach, instead of saying standard analysis like we did last time, you can tell it that I have my own approach. So then after I've told it you've got my own approach, as you can see, it asked me to tell it what I wanted to do. So suppose I was only interested in analyzing outcome 1.2. So I'll start off by saying, please filter the file I gave you so that it only contains data on outcome 1.2. It then answered me to say that the dataset has been successfully filtered, and now what do I want it to do? And suppose this is what I was interested in: a deep dive, financial analysis, an in-depth breakdown of activities by CPR function, and the detailed analysis of the outputs of the outcome. Let's see. It's explaining how it will do the analysis, and now it's analyzed. So it does its analysis and it gives you all sorts of information, which you also need to cross-check, but gives you a lot of information. And I always find it easier to then ask it to say, can you rewrite the information so that it's easier to understand? So let's see what it tells us. As you can see, it tries to write it in a report which tries to be a bit more structured, better structured and easier to understand. Although I'm not sure it did exactly what I was expecting. So anyway, it'll give you this information. Very important. Cross-check the information. You can chat with it to find out more and ask it to tell you more. Cross-check the information and then finalize it. But for the point of this was to show that you can also ask it specific questions besides the standard analysis. That, in a nutshell, is the UNINFO Analyzer, a tool which is supposed to help you analyze the UNINFO data. Try it and let us know how it goes.